It was a game that seemed won in the next to the last moment of the second overtime. It was all over, but it went on into a third overtime. It was a game that started on Friday and ended on Saturday. It was a game that the fans in Boston Garden and a nationwide audience will never forget. It was a game they're calling the greatest in NBA history. It was a game that became an integral part of the Celtics' 13th NBA championship. But it was a game that was just one part of the Boston Celtics playoff story. A story worth telling again. On April 11th, 1976, the NBA teams played the last game of the regular season. On April 13th, the qualifying teams started the long climb that would eventually lead to the NBA championship for one team. The playoffs were underway. The second season had begun. The Boston Celtics started the second season in the Garden against a formidable foe, the Buffalo Braves. The Celtics had won 4 but lost 3 to the Braves in the regular season play. In the first 2 playoff games, Boston had little trouble with the Braves on the Garden floor. But in Game 2, the Boston lineup seemed different. It looked as though there was something missing. And indeed there was. John Havlicek had injured a foot and was not in the lineup. The Celtics had taken the first game by 9. Without Hondo, they took the second by 5. And then the series moved to Buffalo. Buffalo won those 2 games to tie the series. Even without Havlicek, the Celtics came within 2 points of winning on the Buffalo home court. Boston took an 11-point victory in Game 5 and came back to the Buffalo Auditorium for a crucial Game 6 of the series. John Havlicek, who had played 35 minutes in Game 5, scoring just but 8 points, was in the starting lineup for the Celtics. The Boston starting 5 were playing their usual game, although John Havlicek, obviously unable to jump on his injured foot, was not getting his share of rebounds. Silas and Cowens easily made up for that. Hondo was playing his steady floor game that has pulled the Celtics out of many a tight situation. All through 3 quarters of play, McAdoo and Randy Smith were answering Boston charges with baskets of their own. The Celtics started on top, and Buffalo came back to own a 5-point lead at halftime. In the third quarter, it was Boston's 5th starter who came alive. Charlie Scott came on for Boston. At the end of the third quarter, the Braves had a 1-point lead. A Charlie Scott jumper put the Celtics up by a point at the beginning of the fourth quarter. The Celtics fought to stay there. DeGregorio, Smith, and McAdoo brought the Braves back. But Charlie Scott broke their hearts. Charlie scored 9 Boston points in a row and hit on 9 consecutive shots. It was what led up to Charlie's 9th point that broke the Braves' heart. A sensational steal that put the Celtics 10 points ahead with 4 minutes left in the game. The Braves closed the score, but it was never in doubt after that, and Boston was on its way to the Eastern Conference Finals, the second step of the playoffs. The Cleveland Cavaliers had won their way into the playoffs with the 3rd best record in the entire NBA. Then, to prove it was no fluke, they beat the Washington Bullets in a 7-game first-round series. The Celtics and the Cavaliers traded home court victories right through Game 5. And as Game 6 opened in the Midwest Coliseum, the home court advantage had led to a 3-2 lead for the Celtics. Now it seemed that it would be Cleveland's turn to win again, for they had the home court advantage, and 21,564 screaming fans cheering them on. The Celtics, led by JoJo White and Dave Cowan, jumped out to an early lead, but then Austin Carr, Jim Brewer, and the veteran Nate Thurmond started to bring Cleveland back, and at halftime, Cleveland led by 3 points. In the third quarter, Boston caught up, passed the Cavaliers, and then the lead seemed to change every time one team or the other would get the ball. The Cavaliers carried a 2-point lead into the fourth quarter. Then Silas tied the game, and Clemens put Cleveland ahead. The scoring of JoJo White, Dave Cowens, and Charlie Scott had kept Boston in the game all evening long. Nate Thurmond put a 3-point play together to put Cleveland that many points ahead. Then JoJo White started hitting from the left side of the court. With 1 minute and 3/4 to go, the Celtics had a shaky 1-point lead. The Cavaliers had the ball, and then Charlie Scott's fast hands took that ball down the court, and Scott stuffed it. That move gave the Celtics a 3-point lead with 1.5 minutes in the game. It broke Cleveland's heart, their spirit, as the Celtics went on to take a 7-point victory and the Eastern Conference title. Meanwhile, in the Western Conference, the defending champion Golden State Warriors ran into a buzzsaw called the Phoenix Suns. The Suns, who were supposed to have no chance in the playoffs, extended the Golden State Warriors to 7 games. The 7th game was played at Oakland Coliseum, where the Warriors were near invincible. It made the Suns' one-sided victory all the more devastating. So the Phoenix Suns were to meet the Boston Celtics in the championship round of the NBA playoffs. At stake, the NBA championship and the Walter Brown Trophy. The first 2 games in Boston Garden before a capacity house went to the Boston Celtics without too much trouble. The second game was a classic Boston victory. 5 men scored in double figures. The injured John Havlicek, although not starting, led all with 23 points. The 15-point victory put thoughts of a 4-game sweep into the heads of the Boston fans. But as the series moved to the Arizona desert, the Celtic fans found out it was not to be, and they found out the hard way. In Game 3, the Rookie of the Year, Alvin Adams, put in 33 points, sent ex-Celtic Paul Westphal 22, as the Suns came up 7-point victors and made the series 2-1. Game 4 was at Donnybrook. Phoenix had jumped out once again on the scoring of Westphal, Adams, and Gar Hurd, who was protecting their board. But then the Celtics came on after they had spotted the Suns an 11-point lead. The Celtics kept chipping away at it. They kept closing the gap, White and Hondo and Cowan, until with just 1 second left, Phoenix led by but 2 points. And when JoJo White's shot, the potential game-tying basket, was just off target, Phoenix had tied the series 108-107. Now the series moved back to Boston for Game 5. Once again, Boston Garden had a capacity crowd. Once again, the season ticket holders had the choice vantage seat. Even before the crowd got settled, the Celtics were on their way. Cowan. Then Silas. Then White. Then Havlicek, as the starting 5 started a pound on the Phoenix Suns and jumped out to a 20-point lead in the first quarter. They made it seem easy on offense. On defense, maybe too easy. The Suns started chipping away at the lead. Slowly they came back with Perry or Hurd or Westphal. Most often the 2 rookie sensations, Alvin Adams and Ricky Sobers. In the fourth period, the teams were trading baskets, and when Westfall Steel turned into a three-point play, the teams were finally tied with just 39 seconds to play. Curtis Perry put Phoenix ahead by making one of two free throw attempts. And Hondo tied the game up by making one of his two with 19 seconds left. And as time ran out, the score stood 95 for Boston, for Phoenix, 95. The first overtime was a defensive battle. 6 points scored by each team as the clubs seemed to be playing in each other's jerseys. As the first overtime came to a close, the score stood locked again, this time at 101. As the second overtime opened, the guards traded baskets. JoJo White put in two for Boston. The score was tied at 105. Then, with 1 minute left in the period, Boston ahead 107 to 106. An offensive foul call put Dave Cowens out of game number 5. A White drive put the Celtics 3 points ahead. Dick Van Arsdale answered from the baseline, and now Phoenix trailed by 1 point. Westfall stole the inbound pass down to Perry, and Perry, with 5 seconds left in the game, put Phoenix ahead by 1. Then a sensational running shot by John Havlicek won the game, or so everyone in the Boston Garden thought. With 1 second left, Phoenix took timeout. The Celtics were ahead by 1 point. But Phoenix didn't have a timeout left, so a technical foul was called, and JoJo White made the penalty free throw with just 1 second left, putting Boston ahead 112 to 110. But the master strategy of John McLeod paid off. Phoenix got the ball at the half court, and an inbound pass to Hurd, a high arcing jumper, and the game was tied at the buzzer at 112. For the first time in NBA history, a championship round game went into the third overtime. Now, with both starting centers on the bench having fouled out of the game, the clubs were playing a different style of ball. Curtis Perry put Phoenix up by 2. Boston fans remembered the last overtime championship game here in the Garden. They remembered and they worried, for the Celtics lost that in the closing moments of the second overtime to the Milwaukee Bucks. JoJo White tied it up from the baseline. Then some excellent defensive work got the ball back into Boston control. It was then that the Boston bench came through. Glenn McDonald, brought along slowly by the Celtics, paid them back for their patience. 2 baskets put the Celtics up by 4 points. Westfall brought it back down to 2. But JoJo White's unerring eye from 21 feet pulled them 4 ahead. And McDonald at the free throw line put them up by 6. Sobers got the margin down to 126 to 122. After 2 hard free throws, Westfall cut the margin once again to 4 points with just 25 seconds left. The Celts were ahead 128 to 124. Westfall came again and brought the lead down to 2. Phoenix put the pressure on, but the Boston Poise would not break. JoJo White, who played all but 2 minutes of the game, retained control of the ball, and for 12 seconds, the Suns could not touch it. The game that started on June 4th, a Friday night, ended on Saturday morning. The Celtics had won the longest, most dramatic, most frenzied game in NBA history. A game that will never be forgotten by a capacity crowd there, nor the millions that saw it on national television. 2 days later, the same 2 teams met for Game 6 of the championship playoff. Once again, there was a capacity crowd. Only this time, they were in the arena called the Madhouse on McDowell Street. The Phoenix fans were out in full force, and they were out for blood. Boston. The Suns had sworn revenge. They said they would take this game and return once more to Boston's Garden and turn it around there. The game was rugged, the play sensational. After 3 quarters, only 1 point separated the 2 teams. The lead had changed hands 4 times. The game had been tied 10 times. Going into the 4th period, it was very much anyone's ball game. With 8 minutes left in the ballgame, Paul Westfall drives to tie the score, and Sobers adds another one to put Phoenix ahead by 1. It will be 7 minutes before the Phoenix Suns score another basket. In those 7 minutes, they pick up just 7 points in free throws. In those 7 minutes, the Celtics take a 10-point lead. Dave Cowan spearheads the attack. But it's not just Cowan, it's Havlicek. And JoJo White. Then Charlie Scott. And the play under both baskets of Paul Silas. The scoring is there and in between the defensive play that keeps the powerful Suns from scoring 1 basket in those frigid 7 minutes. Frigid for Phoenix. Sizzling for the Celtics. It's a complete victory for Boston. The offense shined. The defense sparkled. Boston had returned to the top of the mountain and once again had the right to call themselves the Boston Celtics, best in the NBA, champions of the world.